I do not own the rights to this music. Hello, and welcome to Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron. Sunday School lesson for Sunday, September 12th, 2021. Our reference material for the Sunday School Summary is based upon the International Sunday School Lesson Series as published by the Sunday School Publishing Board. We are discussing Celebrating God as the title of the fall lesson series, and the series is categorized into 3 units or groups of lessons. In Unit 1, we're talking about God's people offer praise. In Unit 2, we'll talk about call to praise God. And in Unit 3, we'll talk about visions of praise. The God's People Offer Praise series document examples of people who celebrated God. Moses and the prophetess Miriam sing songs of praise for God's mighty acts, as we discussed in prior lessons. In today's lessons, David dances before the ark as he brings it into Jerusalem. The title of our second lesson in the Unit 1 Fall Lesson series is titled Celebrating with Enthusiasm, and that is from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 5. And that verse reads as follows. David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and on psalteries and on timbrels and on cornets and on cymbals. In other words, it was quite a band. They had winged instruments, they had percussion instruments, and they had brass instruments, and they were dancing and singing to the Lord. Now, the title of today's lesson is Celebrating with Enthusiasm, and the background to today's lesson is David's execution of his plan to bring the Ark of God, which is called by the name of the Lord Almighty, to Jerusalem, and the festivities associated with that event. There are 2 summary lesson points for today: corporate praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6 verses 1 through 5, and personal praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6 verses 14 through 19. The passages for the lesson today revolve around the keywords of faith, ark, corporate, and instrumental terms we'll discuss later. But faith is the complete trust, assurance, belief, or confidence. In our case, we have a faith in God. Celebrate means to acknowledge a significant day or event with a social gathering, and generally it's food, dance, and song. Ark, the box or the chest that represented the presence of the Lord, and that's why it was so significant and important. It contained the tablets of the law that Moses received from God, as well as a jar of manna which they were fed from heaven in the wilderness, and Aaron's rod. And God gave special instructions on the handling of the ark. and corporate. Now, the word corporate, we think of an entity or association that is formed by law with rights and liabilities as an individual. But we are talking about corporate worship. And for our purposes, we are talking about it's relating to or formed into a unified body of individuals. And the actions of David was spontaneous, and it unified the people to celebrate God in a corporate or unified manner. Corporate praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. In these passages, David continues his plan to bring the ark to Jerusalem after previously incurring the wrath of God for his handling of the ark. Now, he drafted all of the able men of Israel, which was 30,000, and he and the men went to Baalah in Judah, and they set the ark on a new cart and brought it from the house of Abinadab and headed to Jerusalem. And as the procession made its way, David and all the people of Israel were celebrating with all of their might. And they were celebrating the Lord with string instruments and percussion instruments, as well as bass instruments. And David set the tone, if you will, or the praise meter for the celebration of the return of the ark by his personal expressions of devotion and thanks to God. And David's personal praise, combined with the spiritual significance of the event, caused the people to break out into a spontaneous praise and corporate worship. Therefore, corporate worship is important because enthusiasm is contagious. Now, in personal praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 14 through 19. And in these passages, David leads the procession into Jerusalem. He's wearing a linen ephod or a priestly apron, and he's dancing before the Lord with all of his might. And he and Israel are bringing the ark into the city with shouts and the sound of trumpets. And as the procession entered the city, Michal, daughter of Saul and David's wife, watched from a window. And when she saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. Now they brought the ark into the tent and set it where David had prepared it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. He blessed the people, and he gave them all a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins, or meat, bread, and wine. And all the people went to their homes. So David's actions and offerings and blessings signified his degree of love for God and the people. His actions also reflected a sincere devotion and commitment to worshiping God with enthusiasm and joy. While the wife of Michal was offended by David's manner of dress and his style of worship, we must remember that we all express our joy differently. Personal praise and worship is reflected differently in different people. Some dance, some sing, some play music, but it's all in praise to God. Those are the summary lesson points for Sunday, September 12th, 2021. Corporate praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. Personal praise from 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 14 through 19. This is Brother Ron with the Sunday School Summary for Sunday, September 12th, 2021. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next Sunday for another edition of Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron.